Welcome to Lift Your Legacy. My name is Jacob Rupp, father, husband, and rabbi. And each week we bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unlock your inner potential and create change that will impact the future. Thank you for listening, and let's get to it.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I have Kristi Andrus on, who is the CEO and head coach of LuxyCoach.com. Kristi's whole focus and her movement is helping moms enjoy motherhood while at the same time being great in their careers, building a great future, and enjoying a full and happy life. Now, no one really knows more about this than her. She was a former media executive and worked with HBO, oversaw the client management team, led a national sales team, and helped HBO grow to more than 10 million subscribers. Now, once she started to have children and the family demands were what they were, so she had to completely re-envision and rethink her whole life. And it's difficult because, the corporate world has a path and has a plan, and we, by being in college and et cetera, sort of feel that we have to go along a certain route. But then what happens when your life, your health, your family, your religion all kind of throws a quote unquote, throws a couple of challenges your way and demands more than just the career, because the career could take you your whole life. It could suck you in and take all of your time. And a lot of times it's very difficult to reimagine and reevaluate where we are and what we're doing. So what's really interesting is Kristi has built a passion around helping people, and she speaks a lot. She's writing and publishing all over the place about exiting the corporate world and about sort of rebuilding life on your terms. I know that's an overused concept, but we really have a hard time doing it because we're so used to all the scripts for relationships, scripts for business, etc., that it's hard to break out. And so that's really the kind of conversation that we discuss today. And just to say very, very openly, this isn't just the podcast isn't just for you to listen to it and walk away from it. But hopefully there's a lot of actionable parts, but sometimes the most important action you can take is to reach out to the guests, to reach out to me if you want more. And to say, this is interesting. I related to you. I like the message. What's the next step? So please pay attention. And should you feel, if you're if you're a mom and you're trying to figure this whole thing out, please reach out to Kristi. And I also do coaching, religion, spirituality, all of the above under there, and to reach out. And also, I would appreciate greatly your feedback. If you enjoyed this, please let me know. If there's things we can do better on the podcast, also please let me know. And with no further ado, here's Kristi.
My background is in media and sports, and I loved it. They're dynamic industries. There's a lot of strong, vibrant leadership there, and there's a lot going on in that space. And I kind of worked my way up the food chain, and I loved it. And it was really amazing, especially as a young woman who was single and loving to travel and kind of doing all of that. And then I had twins, and a few months later, I had my third, and it was...
That changes things.
That changes everything. It's a game changer. And, there were a lot of profound shifts in my personal life, and I wasn't having the same experience or the same meaning from my professional life.
Tell me a little bit about that. Was it that you had a lot more going on at home and that it just wasn't as exciting anymore, or that the industry didn't really support someone with family aspirations? What was the thing specifically that didn't work?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I think that in the midst of kind of this profoundness at home, there was still the bureaucracy and the pace that happens in the corporate world.
Sure.
And I'll give you an example. I had a project that we were working on, and I went into labor early with my third. And so literally I just set it on my desk and left the office. And here I come back several months later, and it's in the same place.
Right.
The project is in the same place.
Right.
And in the meantime, I had given birth. My baby had learned to crawl. There was all this stuff happening, and I just couldn't reconcile those two different speeds. And I was feeling really torn about that. And so I had a heart-to-heart with my husband about trying something different. And, you don't just say, all right, I'm out. You have to kind of, lay some groundwork. And so it's
an interesting question. That was probably a very disconcerting or challenging conversation, because here you have a big, you kind of build a life based on certain income expectations and everything else. And then you have the kids. It's like, I got to figure something else out. So was that Was that like a big challenge for you guys, or how did you even negotiate that question with your husband in order to make it work well, I guess?
That's a good question. Yeah, it was a challenge. It was a challenge in a way that it was big because my husband, who's a broadcaster, had given up his career to be a stay-at-home dad.
Wow.
When we found out we were having twins. So yes, for me to say I want to choose something different really impacted him, because it basically said, honey, you're on the hook to find something too.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of passing the baton the opposite direction. And, in the whole scheme of things, was it a big deal? No, I don't think so. We had challenges in our marriage. He had cancer early in our marriage, things like that were really big deals.
Wow.
So it felt big, but it didn't feel monumental. And it certainly felt like something that we could weather. We were on the same page.
Okay, great. So then what did you decide, and how'd you figure it out?
So I was very fortunate in that we had a runway to kind of save for it. And we ultimately decided that we were just going to take a year as a family. He wasn't going to work. I wasn't going to work. We were just going to spend the entire year with the kids, traveling, having quality time, doing all those things we needed to do to kind of recalibrate and figure out our next move. And it was incredible times a million. It was exactly what we needed. I felt restored. I felt energized. I felt like I'm on the right path. And then it gave him some time to do some soul searching, me some time. But most importantly, I think we could just say, this time will be an investment in our family's future. And it felt like really, I think the word I'm looking for, like it just felt right, I guess. And so we just kind of dove into it. And I had to learn how to be a more hands-on mother. He had to learn how to share that role with me a little bit. And so I think it was just a good time for our family to reset our roles too.
Just out of curiosity, that soul searching process, and I think that's probably something that you help other moms and women with. What was that like? Because a lot of times when I have kids also, and a lot of times when you're with your children, you're so kind of hands-on or like needing to decompress, that the whole process of soul searching is also kind of difficult. So what kind of questions were you asking yourselves, or what were the practices that you and your husband were going through in order to kind of figure out what your next step was?
Yeah, so we work really deliberate about our time. So I think one of the things we did is we committed to working out every day.
Okay.
Sometimes that was with the kids. We would do like family yoga or something. Sometimes it was, I'd run a spin class and he'd go to the gym. Right. It was the combination that we would do family dog walk as often as possible. So we're also all outside together, all getting fresh air, all, having good conversation. And then my twins were kind of 4, 5, 6 as we were going through this process, and my baby was 2, 3, 4. So yes, there was a lot going on. It was a very busy time for us, but at the same time, I think that's the sweet spot for moms, right? You're setting that foundation, you're setting the tone for your relationship going forward. And we just talked a lot. We talked a lot, and kind of all the things that I wanted to be sure to say or do with my kids, we did.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So now you made this exit from corporate America, and now you are in a different kind of an experience. So how did you like narrow in on the niche of people you work with right now? And how do you help them? And then like, how does writing and your creative side kind of fit into this?
Okay. Good question. So the first part of that is I didn't know when I left that I wanted to coach women. What I did know is that I wanted something that was going to better serve my family, something that had a little more upside and optionality for me long term, and potentially something that made a difference. And so when I took that break, what I did was kind of dove really deeply into digital resources. I started reading and consuming and just gobbling up everyone who I admired, what they were doing, what they were about. And I also joined a lot of community groups. And for example, MOPS at my church and just different things like that. And when what I saw was the conversations that I was having with women, whether they were executives or entrepreneurs or stay-at-home moms or kind of across the board, they're kind of swimming, kind of keeping their head above water in their day-to-day, just swallowed by the logistics of being a mom. And at the same time, they still had the urge to be more, do more, and contribute more, right? And those things could fill at odds. And so a lot of women were feeling really torn. And I had the benefit of having this history and this experience of a lot of professional resources. And so what I tried to do is said, I came home one day to my husband, I said, honey, I think I can help solve for this. I think I can take kind of a corporate look at this and a project management and a leadership way of approach to this and just say, okay, how can I help these women facilitate their life right now so they have some wins to kind of build some momentum and just feel good, better, good with their family in the moment, but also satisfy those dual needs of kind of, you want to savor where you're at. You want to love on these babies and be fully present to them. And also you want to have progress each day that makes you feel like you're getting one step closer to, your goal or your legacy or whatever that it is that you're trying to build.
So then tell me a little bit about how the corporate process actually works when you sort of look at your own life, because I think that that's a very interesting approach that certainly for a lot of people that are in the, kind of throes of life, it's like the work world has its rules, and that makes a lot of sense. If you're super structured, your home rule, life has rules, and it makes a lot of sense. And oftentimes you don't take the same, you don't think there's a crossover, or that, I guess you could say, it's interesting because one of the things, a theme that I'm hearing a lot that from other guests and that I speak about is the idea of, you take a certain level of the compassion and the love that you have in your home and you try to apply it to your business. I think that we're moving in that direction. But what you're saying is in a lot of ways the opposite, that there are lessons in corporate structures that can go into how you run your own life that are helpful in order to accomplish those kind of goals. So what are some of those strategies and techniques when you're sort of looking at your life and trying to figure out where you want to go?
Yeah, I think it's both. 100%. I do think that people are showing up more authentically and more lovingly and just more as people in the corporate world. And that's a huge transition. And I'm excited about that. I'm just saying you actually see that though, from the beginning of your career to now. Absolutely.
Okay.
1,000%. And I think that the companies that are doing that well are thriving. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
And in terms of bringing the corporate side, so there's this idea, I was just reading this thing, I think it was the former CEO of Etsy, Chad something, and he was talking about our many wondrous but messy sides or something like that. And just this idea that, you can hold two visions of yourself, right? I can be a hot mess one moment and the best mom in the world one moment, right? I could be, I can know with absolute clarity and certainty that I'm going to be a rock star at this coaching thing. And I also can be lost in the hustle every day, what it's going to take to get there, right? So there's a complexity to that. And I think with the corporate space, the stuff that I'm bringing over is when you're in a corporate situation, you have a corporate environment. One of the things that I think is thrilling about it is that you have vast resources, right? Big budgets and teams of people, right, and departments that are there just to make sure that you accomplish what you're going to accomplish.
Right.
And I think that is the part that I try to bring to these moms is you don't have to go at this alone, and you don't have to learn everything that there is to fulfill this role. What you can do is you can say, here's the thing that I'm good at. Here's the way that I'm going to parent, and kind of trust your instincts and play to your strengths. And then you can say, I'm going to need these moms, this community of moms or this family to do this. Or it's almost like you're delegating, right? You're pulling the resources of people in your life to make your life easier so you can stay in your zone and you can just be an incredible mom.
So that's interesting. So you're saying that just to reiterate what I think I'm hearing is you're saying that first you have to start with the vision of what you want to accomplish. And now you're saying mom, but also that there's this desire that some women might feel like, I want to work, or I want to advance a certain career, whatever it might be. So you have to get those pieces on the table. And then the next step is figuring out what you can delegate or how you can work with it in order to actually go forward, find the other, quote unquote departments in your life that you can use. Is that fair?
Yeah. And that you can use the journey of motherhood and the joy of motherhood to find that fulfillment. But I think it's just rare to think that, there's a lot of moms out there, right? And most moms either have to or want to work, right? It's just kind of the world we live in today.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea that we would all just collect a paycheck or we would all just do what we have to do to provide for our families is it's kind of limited. And I want to see them thrive in a way that, yes, you can achieve a lot and you can contribute a lot and you can find this career that's really fulfilling, but also you don't have to let your the calling that is motherhood kind of moved to the back burner in that. So it's hard. It's a lot. It's, there's a lot there.
You find though that there is a natural, like one or the other, meaning that there's a certain, if you're putting your work first, then there's a natural guilt that it's like, I'm not doing a good job being a mom. Or if I'm being a mom, so then I have to sort of look at working as a necessary evil that either I have to just make money, or it's like, if I was a better mom, I would not care about working, but the reality is I want to. Is that sort of what you're saying, that naturally
so I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I think I have this theory, and who knows, but I have this theory that most moms, if given the choice, would be stay-at-home moms, at least for a period of those foundational years.
Wow. Okay.
That's a big one, yeah.
Nice.
Saying that is not to say people don't love their careers, or their careers don't bring them a lot of meaning, and they ultimately aren't at their best in their careers. I think it's just, if we could say, okay, all moms, you have a baby, you get 5 years of maternity leave, come back when you're ready, the whole world would be like, woo! There's a big opportunity there. But having said that, I think that the reality is most moms kind of have to balance both, and both roles are deeply fulfilling. So what I'm saying is, let's find a way so that you can move forward in both directions, you can thrive in both directions, and ultimately they can meet your needs now, but that you're not sacrificing so much of yourself in either space or feeling so torn that you're not getting to where you want to go in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's great. How much of self-esteem goes into this process? Because I think that, and I don't know if only you could speak to moms. I'm a dad. I think that there's a lot of, being a parent is a very humbling experience where I don't know anybody, but I think most people feel like they're getting, kind of punched in the face with, kind of with reality and your own limitations. And like, I wasn't going to get upset, and I got upset. I was going to be organized. I'm not organized. And do you feel that if you're looking at a client that feels a certain level of overwhelm, do you advise? There's this, I guess, kind of two ways. I'm sure it probably depends on the person, but on one hand, it's like, let's try to get you some wins, meaning let's try to get you to send out your resume, or let's try to get you, moved in a direction where you feel really good about work. And maybe that confidence from work will fulfill you more and make you feel better as a parent. Or do you say, let's try to get you good as a parent and then kind of flow out of work? So the question is really like, when you have these dual things competing, do you try to fix one first, or do you sort of do both at the same time, or you just try to figure out what's the easiest next step? Like, how do you look at that kind of a complicated structure?
Yeah. So I think it depends on the person. It's 100% tailored to their situation. But I think, for example, one of the things I think I told you previously is, it's like when you're redecorating your house and you come in and you do something in your library, and all of a sudden it looks amazing, and every time you walk by that room you just want to sit down and sigh and love it.
Right.
But then when you turn the corner and you're in your great room and you say, oh, now I need to do something in here, right? I think when we level up in anywhere part of our life, we have that kind of desire to do that across the board. That said, I think, to use your words, yes, sometimes you just need some wins, right? So if I can see a simple fix that would be really impactful in their, I'll give you an example. For a lot of moms, it's mornings. Everybody wakes up out of bed, and it's just like this mad rush scramble to pack backpacks, eat food, run out.
That was just us.
Yeah, everyone has shoes to find, and gloves to find, and hats to find, and papers to turn in, and all the kind of stuff, right? And so we do this little tiny exercise about mindful mornings, and basically my mantra in all of that is, mom set the tone for the day. And so do you want your kids to run out of the house feeling flustered and scrambled and, in a frenzy, or do you want them to walk out of the house with this kind of groundedness and, I got this, I'm going to have an incredible day, and my mom helped me, create these systems that empower me to be at my best at school all day long. And so that can serve them professionally or personally, right?
For sure. One of the things that I think is very interesting is that in at least in conventional media, we are kind of increasingly, there's this very strong pressure about, college and education being institutionalized, and then therefore the workforce being very institutionalized. And, I don't know if it's true or not, but, on the other hand, it's like tradition and, religious observance is on the decrease. And so there's this, I guess, general perception of us becoming kind of more robotic and less spiritual. And it's interesting because certainly in the work that I do, it sounds like the work that you do, we're kind of hearkening back. You wrote the book on leaving corporate life, and, hearkening back to, religion being an important part of our life. Parenting is an important part of our life. That's why, it's like, I was surprised when you said the idea that women would naturally want, those 5 years off. Like, wow, that's relatively unconventional in 2019. So, do you feel, if you were speaking to a younger audience or say a young mom, do you feel like it's important to kind of stress rethinking everything about corporate life and education, or is this something that you come to later in your life when you've been disillusioned by it? Like, how do you see that?
I think there's a couple things. So I think motherhood does have it's a game changer, right? It's something that the minute it happens, I'm writing this post right now. You talked a little bit about content marketing earlier. And one of the things I do in my content marketing is I try to represent all sides of myself, right? So I want to be an example of the mom who some days has it together and is doing incredible things, and the mom some days who is barely holding it together and my kids are a disaster, right? And I think that's real and that's authentic. And I also tend to lead with a lot of heart. And I think that does speak to some of the spirituality and the perspective that you're talking about. But I'm writing this post right now. My daughter is turning 4 tomorrow.
Congratulations.
And I was thinking about she was born on Super Bowl Sunday 4 years ago.
Nice.
Another story. But I was thinking about how when you have a child, it's kind of a line in the sand for moms. And it's like you can see your old life and you still can relive the highlights and the heartbreaks and all the pivotal moments. But at the same time, you're somewhat detached from it because you can see what's ahead of you is in some ways going to be bigger or more pervasive, I guess. And I think...
You're saying from a time standpoint or an impact standpoint, meaning like now you're building the next generation, or this is just going to be a lot of work?
Both. I mean, everything, right? You went through this profound shift with your body and your hormones and your relationship with your husband. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was at the mailbox 2 weeks after having my twins. That was the farthest I made it out of my house, was to the mailbox.
Right.
And I bumped into my next door neighbor, and she said, "How are you guys? How's the baby?" And then the babies, and I said, "They're great." And I was just beaming with that new mom kind of thing. And then she said, "How's your husband?" And I just started sobbing hysterically. And I thought, I have no idea. We've tagged each other in. I haven't seen him in 2 weeks. It was my best friend, and I hung out with him every minute. And now I haven't seen him in 2 weeks. And is this what my life is like? And I think she was kind of like, I just was making conversation at the mailbox.
Like, whoa.
But my point is, I think everything changes, right? And I think what happens is women who like to be good at a lot of things, who are used to taking on a lot of roles, I think we feel like, okay, this is just going to be another thing that I step into and kind of shine in. This is another direction that my life's going to go, and I'm going to kill it over here too, right? And I think what happens is, instead of just it becoming something where you can be doing really, really well as a mom, and you can also start questioning yourself, like, is the corporate environment the best place for my family? Can I work and raise the kids the way I want to? And when I say everyone wants 5 years of maternity leave, that it's kind of a joke. But what I'm saying is, I think that whatever environment we're in is the feedback we hear, right? And I think when you're in a corporate environment, all those moms had a short maternity leave and came back and made it work, and their kids are fine, right? And so they're telling the new moms, it's going to be fine for you too. It's all going to work out. So you hear you kind of hear what you're going to hear based on the environment you're in. I don't think either one is necessarily the right answer for everybody. I think just that as a society, we could be doing a lot better supporting new moms, supporting families, and, just giving women and families the resources they need for everyone to be doing better.
It's a fascinating point. What it sounds like you're saying to me is that because your environment is going to dictate basically success and failure according to that environment, you have to, I guess, have the self-awareness to figure out what environment you want to be around in order for it to work well. And you're saying that the reason why it's very hard with moms is because that self-awareness shifts so dramatically once you begin that motherhood process. So it's almost like you have to rethink who you are, and then you don't really have the benefit of a process, I guess you could say, to getting there, because you're sort of like already there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you nailed it. And I think that when you're, I think perspective is so key, right? So if your whole network is other working moms who all, took their 3 months or 6 months or whatever, and then came back full force in the same dress size that they were before, and it was like a thing, that's what you're going to feel pressured to do, and that's fine, right? But if your whole social network is stay-at-home moms, and that's kind of what your plan is, that's all you know too, right? And I'm saying there's a hybrid in there, and I think it's seasonal, right? What your kids need when you're very, very young or infants is very different than toddlerhood and then childhood, and as each stage. I'm saying it's fine to reevaluate, and I think that the tough thing, if you will, about the corporate world is there's not a lot of, and this is not just true for moms, true for everyone there. There's not a lot of room to kind of say, am I still that person, or is this job still meeting my needs?
Or that it's seasonal at all. Like that's the point you were saying, is that it's like the world of commerce will go on. Yeah. And in that way, you're kind of a piece in a bigger picture, and the picture doesn't stop because you fall out. Right. But in our own life, you have to have the awareness that this might work for me now, or again, like for us, like we have 4 little kids that are all 10 and under, and it's just kind of a mess. You know what I'm saying? But like that's, I always older guys in my religious community are always like tapping you on the shoulder, like, watch this, because they're all going to go, and you're going to be sitting there with your wife, and they're all moved out and got married, and you're going to be like, it's really boring now. So I'm like, well, that actually happens, But I think that that's an important thing, is to realize that the commerce world and the personal world are 2 separate entities, and you just have to figure out, like, you're ultimately living in your world, so sometimes it makes sense if it doesn't fit in 100%. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
and you have to have a long-term perspective on it. You have to say, okay, ultimately, what is going to matter to me in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? Is it going to matter that I spent my children's 0 to 5 with them or not? My children's 3 to 8? What time period is most going to matter to me? And you can say, I don't know, so I'm just going to try this on. And I think for the same reasons that you were talking about the corporate workforce changing and people's attitudes about work changing, I think there's an opportunity now to figure it out. And if it feels right to step out for a minute, step out for a minute. I mean, yes, it's risky, but everything's risky. I mean,
for sure. Great. And just one more question before I ask how people can find you more. To what extent are you trying to take this lesson, this mission, because there are so many millions of moms out there that are trying to navigate this, and as much as it's like whenever you have a life-changing event, someone's a child's born, somebody passes away, we live in a world of so much. It's like everything's been thought out until like really crazy stuff happens in your own life, and you're like, oh my God, like what do I do now? And it's like there isn't that ready fit. It's like, yeah, you want to go to college, so there's a whole a plan for you, or you go into corporate vertical, and it's like, okay, do this, and then you can go up, but then you hit like bumps in your life, and it is very hard. And I think that this space of helping people navigate these major life transitions is not so well documented, and it seems like that's kind of what you're working in. What's your long-term goal in terms of taking your message and how to get out there? Do you want to start working with corporations? Is it just like working with individuals? Is it just mass, like leveraging social media? How do you see your mission going in the future?
Yeah. So I think the thing
as someone that's like grown HBO to like, millions and millions of people, Yeah,
I can't take full credit for that. It was a team, and it is a team.
It's okay. It's still,
So, there's a couple things. The one thing that you said, which is absolutely key, is that piece about creating space, right? I think when we're pushed against a wall, or we're feeling the pressure of making those decisions, I think sometimes our vision can get really narrow, and we lose perspective because we say, oh my gosh, I have to fix this right now. My washing machine broke down the other day. I have 3 kids and a dog. Like, oh my gosh, that thing becomes the urgent thing in my life, right? Replacing that. At the same time, does that matter? Does it really matter? No. So you have to kind of keep that space of, what am I working on right now? And is this the thing that's going to move me forward? Is this the highest kind of ROI type activity for me, right? And so I think that is one of the things that I do with the women, is I kind of hold the space to say, okay, let's just tell me what's going on. We're going to figure it out together. And I kind of enlarge that space. So if they only feel like they can lean over each way 2 inches, and then they're going to bump into the decision time, I help them understand that they have as much time and as much resources as they need to make the decision that's going to best.
That's such a crazy lesson. That's a crazy, I do a little bit of jujitsu, and it's so funny because there's that, like, whatever, it's a wrestling analogy or whatever you want, but it's like, you can't move if you're like squished. And so the practice of just, opening up space, that gives you so much maneuvering room, and that's the only way you can get around. So that's really fantastic, is that we sort of do the same thing in our minds. It sounds like you're saying, of like, we're like, well, what am I supposed to do? And the answer is like, well, let's find one area that you can open up so that you can start to see that there are other maneuvering ways. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. And in the most simplest terms, and I do this with my kids all the time, is if you feel backed up against a wall or pressured or threatened, even like I have to decide this or I have to do this right now, one of the easiest, most powerful things you can do is just wiggle your toes. And all it does is take all that blood from your head and just rushes it through your body. And it kind of just gives you that, okay, like lets you breathe again. But anyway, all that to say that what I want to have happen, and no, I don't want to work with corporations. I'm loving the thrill of the entrepreneurial and the, the content marketing piece and being online and, easily accessible. And I think the reason that I don't want to work with corporations is because, frankly, I feel like they have enough resources. They have the ability to make the changes they would need right now, this very moment, to do the things that they would need to do, like equal pay or more time off or family leave or all those things. They have all that at their fingertips, and they're dragging their feet. And I just don't want to be in that space, right?
You're saying like the system's kind of rotten from the inside. So even
rotten.
Interesting.
It is. And I think the market that's underserved is the working moms, the moms who are holding it down for our families and our communities and our corporations. And I think they're the ones who are in need of and deserve the services that I offer. So no, I'm 100% for the working mom, team working mom. But and to answer your question about, they can find me online at luxycoach.com. That's LUXI coach.com. And I'm on Instagram and Pinterest and everywhere they might look.
Fantastic. Okay, Kristi, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Good luck with your 4 little ones.
There you have it, folks, another inspiring episode. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please share this with your friends and to like us over on Rabbi Rupp through Facebook or on YouTube. And the more that we're able to get these important messages out, the more that we can really make an impact in the world. So I encourage you, please, to stay tuned. We have a ton of amazing speakers coming up, and also to tell your friends about it. Thank you very much.